Right. And I mean, I think the point of the meeting, which was Mark Rutte trying to come in and sort of assuage the president now 2 weeks ahead of this very critical NATO summit in Turkey, he's certainly living up to his reputation as a Trump flatterer. He brought those charts. He really tried to emphasize to Trump that the European allies were, in fact, helping out with the Iran war, but it really didn't seem to work. The president saying that he was let down by the fact that the Europeans didn't participate in the bombing runs, and also saying, I think quite extraordinarily, that he actually wouldn't be going to the NATO summit at all unless it was being hosted by the Turkish President Erdogan, which of course it is, and yes, he will be in Ankara in 2 weeks. And so for all of the attempts that Mark Rutte is making to try and cultivate Trump and to try and sort of keep him on side, I did not hear anything from the president there that would suggest that that is working in any way. The other, I think, interesting point that the president brought up here was the question of this housing bill that we were talking about earlier this hour, that the president has sort of shucked away in favor of this voting rights bill that he's trying to get passed. The president really downplaying the importance of this bill, which passed with more than 80 votes in the Senate, more than 350 votes in the House on a bipartisan basis, and the president saying that, in fact, the only way to get housing better in the United States is to bring interest rates down, really downplaying this very bipartisan achievement that the White House had spent yesterday really trying to trumpet. So sort of walking all over those efforts and suggesting that the only way to make housing more affordable was to bring the interest rates down. And so, you know, if I think you're the president's advisors, if you're Republicans on the Hill, or if you're Mark Rutte listening to this meeting, I don't think you're hearing a whole lot that you want to be hearing from the president, but nonetheless, he's still going on in here almost for an hour talking about all manner of topics. Just shows you where the president's head is at this very busy point.
Lunatic. That's the word. That's the word that the president of the United States used against a senator from his own party today. It was during a lunch with Republicans on Capitol Hill, and it deteriorated into a shouting match. It was Senator Bill Cassidy who was the target of Trump's lunatic insult. And he said, he's talked about the context. So he said he was talking to Trump about the war. He went on to say this. He said, quote, "You have not told the American people what's going on. It was supposed to last for 4 weeks. It lasted 4 months." Cassidy goes on to say to reporters, he did not particularly care for my comments. And then Cassidy went on to describe how the temperature escalated from there.
The president didn't want to hear my question, interrupted me. I didn't care to be interrupted. I felt like I was trying to get answers for the American people. And I'm not going to be bullied, and I'm trying to get answers for the American people.
President Trump then told Cassidy to sit down. Cassidy said that he wouldn't, which he referred to there. So that's when Trump called him a lunatic, according to our excellent reporting by Manu Raju. And then something really odd happened in the meeting. So Trump complained that the Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick missed yesterday's Iran war vote. Now, Politico is reporting that that complaint was there. And now Trump, of course, has said that missed vote is why the Senate voted down his war powers, okay? So fine, but there's something really odd about this. And what's odd about it is that McCormick missed that vote because he was with Trump. I mean, literally, he was with Trump. There they are at a Mack Trucks factory in Pennsylvania. So it's a little bit jarring to hear Trump complaining about McCormick for the failure of the bill and the rebuke from Republicans when Trump, to state something very basic, should have known and remembered where McCormick was. But after all of this, Trump put a positive spin on the whole lunch when he spoke to reporters.
I think we had a really great meeting, and we're very proud of the party. We like our leader. We like everybody really in the room. I don't like a few people, but that's okay. But for the most part, we have a really well-unified party.
Okay, it's not a unified party. Neither party's unified right now, but certainly not the Republican Party. And that whole episode behind closed doors with yelling and insults follows the public humiliation that Republicans suffered at the hands of Trump earlier today. Right, so there was this big humiliation, then there was the yelling lunch. So here's how that part went down. It was the first bipartisan housing affordability bill in decades. It was about to be signed on Capitol Hill. It was all pomp and circumstance. 12 noon, it was scheduled. They had it all set up. Flags, podium, desk, all fancy, ready to go. 10:15, the speaker, so the speaker, right, is Republican, proud of this whole thing, holds a press conference to brag about the bill.
We're going to bring the American dream back within the grasp of hard-working American families. Critical to do, great policy.
Okay, great policies, helping hardworking Americans. Those are Republicans. Steve Scalise behind him. They're proud of this. Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, is proud of it. On Twitter, she calls the bill one of the most significant pieces of housing affordability legislation in American history. So everybody's excited. Then at 10:26, Trump drops a bomb. He says, quote, "Today's housing news conference and signing is hereby canceled until such time as we pass the desperately needed all caps Save America Act, which I consider to be a national emergency." So Republicans who had hoped to run on affordability, right? They put the word affordability that has resonated so much in primaries across the country in all of their talking points there, were just derailed by their own president for what? The Save America Act.
My fear is that it would result in disenfranchising voters who have been voting for decades.
Senator Tom Tillis, also a Republican, said, quote, "We should not be completely upending how states already securely conduct their elections. Even if this issue is fixed, the Save America Act still will not have the 60 votes required to pass it." And Trump ally Senator Rick Scott, who is for the actual act, told Trump directly today that they just simply do not have the votes to pass it. He said, quote, "I'm a business guy. You have to live in reality." The reality is, though, that when it comes to this, the voting bill matters more to Trump than the housing bill, championed by his own party, right? He canceled their big party. According to Punchbowl, Trump said in March behind closed doors, quote, "No one gives a blank about housing." Sounds a lot like this.
To what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
He said it himself. Manu Raju's out front on Capitol Hill. And Manu, obviously, as I said, incredible reporting. You're the one who's been talking to everybody, getting all these details from Cassidy and Tillis and others. The major blow up behind closed doors at that luncheon today. What's happening right now between Trump and his own party?
Well, I think it actually, Aaron, could be summed up with how Senate Majority Leader John Thune just said to reporters, including to our colleague Morgan Rimmer. He said it was largely a one-sided conversation, referring to the conversation in the room there, because President Trump has decided to move on things and make demands that are counter to what Senate Republicans have wanted to do. And this has been going on for several weeks, whether it was coming out with the anti-weaponization fund that could have provided taxpayer money to January 6th riot, or something that caused a major revolt on Capitol Hill, ultimately caused Senate Republicans to walk away from delaying his major immigration enforcement bill for weeks, or it was the president's demands over the so-called Save America Act, which has derailed a critical surveillance law turning off key spying powers of the federal government because of this dispute, or leaving open a vacant position, a critical position, the permanent director of national intelligence, all over this. And now the latest over this major housing bill that Republicans and Democrats have been touting, and GOP leaders in particular were so desperate to talk about affordability, pivot on this issue, ready to cheerlead this, but they were totally blindsided by the president's abrupt decision to scrap this news conference and decide that he simply wanted this Save America bill passed. But this is the problem, Aaron, as John Thune and other Republicans have told me time and time again, they simply do not have the votes to deliver on Donald Trump's core promise. So at what point does the president back off and say that he needs to move on with his agenda? Because if he doesn't, Aaron, then this agenda will continue to be stymied, and Republicans will be pointing fingers in a state of disarray heading into a critical midterm election season.
All right, Manu Raju, thank you very much on Capitol Hill with all of that reporting. And breaking news, Iran is doubling down on no nuclear inspectors, something the Trump administration says is key to the agreement between the two countries. Iran's deputy foreign minister posting that there is, quote, no program for access to the attacked facilities and nuclear materials. It comes in the country.